Well, thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Nicole Jordan. I'm going to be presenting the Unifier-Archiver this morning. I'm joining you today from Calgary. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning. It's first thing in the morning, sunrise right now. So bodes well for the webinar. Let's touch on some of the common struggles that people face when they're working in Unifier in terms of getting the data out. Okay, so when a project's completed, or if you have some contractual commitments, you usually need to get the data out of the system. Okay, so what can it can be a challenge to get all that data out. I mean, obviously you can email things and whatnot, but that would be incredibly onerous to try and extract many years of project history. So doing that one by one manually would be a big challenge, and the chance of getting it right is very, very slim. So when you've got contractual commitments, you need to be able to extract all the documents, including all the attachments. And in some of our clients' cases, those are very, very big files. So what we've tried to do with the Unifier loader is to make sure that you can get all the documents out. Okay. Now, if you are in a claim situation and you've got to provide backup and you've got to get that data to non-Unifier users for evidence and whatnot, that too can be a huge, huge challenge and a very expensive undertaking. So what we've done with Unifier Archiver is to try and make that process very simple, make it reliable, make it user-friendly, so that people can do this with confidence and not be concerned and worried about whether or not they've actually got all the documents they expected. So really the benefit of this tool is just that. It's going to allow you to grab the documents, archive the documents, keep a backup of the project, and you won't have to rely on being able to ongoingly access the Unifier system. Okay, so for one of our clients, they're typically the contractual commitments are seven years after a project's completed, and they didn't want to pay 7 years of Unifier Cloud fees, so which can be quite substantial. So this could be a cost-effective option to get the data out in an area that you can access securely and also reliably. So let's touch on how Unifier-Archiver works. So Unifier-Archiver, it lets you pick the projects, modules, and extract the documents. Now, reliably, this will work on any version after 17.6 to the current version. It's using technology. We use technology that Oracle introduced at 17.6. And anything earlier, which I highly doubt too many people have that, it would be a bit of an effort to rework it, but reliably 17.6 plus will work. And we've run it on the latest version, 2012. So as I mentioned, you select the project data, but you can also extract the company data, including the document management portals and folders. You choose the modules or business processes that you want to extract, and you let the software run, and it'll pull out the data. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look and jump into the software, and I'm going to show you some examples. And these are food for thought. I mean, you can run it in many, many different ways, but I'm going to just run through a few different examples. So I'm going to switch over to showing the software. Shannon, just let me know if it's too small. I think the font is big enough, but just let me know if it's coming across too small.
I can read it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so let me explain what you're looking at. So you're looking at Unifier-Archiver. I've logged in to the software, so there is a login. It needs to be secured. And typically, this is not just the regular user running this, okay? It's usually more of an admin or a super user in Unifier that would run this software. Now that's important because of security, okay? When you're trying to extract documents from many business processes, you need to have a high level of security to be able to do that. We can't do anything that a user can't do, so it's important that we have a good high level, top level really, security to be able to take everything out of the system. So this is kind of the status zone of what you've extracted. It lets you know kind of where you're at. So rather than spending any time on this at this moment, I'm going to go into the extract area. So it's a very simple user interface. We pick the projects and company level data that we want to extract, and we pick the modules or the business processes that we want to extract. And then you submit, and off it goes and does its thing, okay? So very simple user interface in terms of how to actually run the system. Now, before we run it, let's actually kind of wrap our heads around some of the documents that we do have that we will show you on once they're extracted. Okay, so there's sort of two layers, at minimum kind of two layers in Unifier. We have this concept of the company information, and then we have the concept of a project. Now, there's also kind of a third layer, a shell, which is sort of a roll-up, which we would be able to extract as well, because it's essentially like a project. So I'll focus on the two, the company and the project levels. So typically in the company level, you have things that are going to be done at the corporate level and then potentially pushed and used inside of the project level. Okay, so things like vendor masters, corporate documentation are pretty commonly set up at the company level. There could also be some procurement levels at the company level. So there could be corporate purchases for long lead items that are then divvied up and charged back, if you will, to the project. So there's a variety of different things that you may set at the corporate level. You may have things like requests for user access and things of that nature, lessons learned documentation that are maybe put in at the project level, but then consumed at the corporate level by a lessons learned master group, master team. Okay, so there's a lot of wonderful things that you can do with Unifier at that corporate level. And if there could well be a good reason to extract those on a regular basis and share them out to other software tools and to other groups. So we do have the ability to extract those. Okay. So we don't have a lot at that level in this database, but I'm going to go ahead and extract that. And I'm going to go ahead and just extract every BP. Now, we don't have every single one of those BPs at the corporate level. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run that. Okay, so you see, whoop, that has an error. Let's take a look. And it could be just more of a warning type of thing. So let's just see. Oops, it's working. There we go. Okay, so could not read record. So this is letting us know that, oops, you see, we've got a problem. This user may not have all the access required. Okay, so this is important piece for us to understand. Okay, so as the user extracting, if there is something that my profile does not have access to, it's going to let me know. Now it's going to try and do everything it is allowed to do. So it doesn't just stop. It does try and do everything that it can. And you're seeing here that it's skipping some of these things because there's that particular BP is not deployed at that corporate level. Okay, so that's sort of a warning. It's not really an error per se. Okay, so it's just letting you know that it tried to do it, but there's nothing for it to extract. Okay, so that's one of the things that it makes Unifier very, very dynamic and very flexible. You can create BPs, business processes, and then you can deploy them to some projects and not others. Okay, so this is not so much an error as it is more of a warning. Okay, so once it runs through and it does the extraction, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to close that. Let me go back into that. It also lets you know that in this scenario, let me go further down. There we go. That'll be better. It also lets you know that in this case, that some of these documents have already been extracted. Okay, so what we have inside of this Unifier-Archiver and our contract management archiver as well, it's progressive archiving. So if we archived a document yesterday and we tried to archive it again today and there were no changes to it, it would skip over it. And it lets you know that some documents have already been extracted. So it skipped because there was nothing new. All right. So it gives you that information. And that's, in this case, why it was so quick, because we have actually run it on some of these modules just a few days ago. Okay, so that gives you that information, and if there's anything new that it had to pull, it lets you know. Okay, so that's just your first kind of level of information as the person running the extraction. So then you would go to your file folder, and we have a file folder for any Unifier Archiver extractions. Now we've broken it into two very, very small naming convention. So one of the things that you bump into, and I'll show you in a second, is the document titles. You want to have a pretty good amount of data on the document titles so you can uniquely see them. So we keep the paths that we put into the system very, very short. So we have one for in progress. So if anything was running at the moment, you would see it and it would let you know that it's working on it. Okay, so because these are empty, we can backtrack here and we can go to the completed folder. So C is for completed, I is for in progress. And we can see that we've got company level data that has been extracted. Okay, so then we've got this naming convention for the folders. Now it looks kind of cryptic. And again, the main reason we're doing it this way is to keep it very, very short. So we reserve as much space for the files. Okay, so these marry up to what business processes are called in Unifier. So we have this very, very short naming convention. And then this is your little cheat sheet here on what you're looking at. Okay, so it's very easy just to flip through these and know what you're looking at. So for example, UBPO, blanket purchase orders. So blanket purchase orders are those procurement items that I mentioned that you would often do at the corporate level. Okay, typically long lead items that you might want to buy in advance, even prior to funding for the project, possibly, or full funding for the project. They could also be bulk items that you buy and then buy en masse, and then you distribute it out to your project sites. Okay, things like structural steel or specialty equipment that makes sense to buy many of them and then distribute it to the projects and have basically the projects refund you. Okay. So that's an example of what's going to be sitting inside of that module. So blanket purchase orders. So let me go and show you one of these in Unifier. Whoop, sorry. It, of course, for security, it wants to make sure that you're staying in the system. So let me just touch on a blanket purchase order. Okay, so we have a few blanket purchase orders in this database. This is our demo database, so it doesn't have too much information. So we've got a few of them in here. And let me explain what you saw in the archiver. So to help the users find documents, what we've done is we've used the log screen, the default log screen that's been set up in the business process area. And we've used that as the folder name. Okay, so it's more, in this database, it's more or less what you're seeing right on this log window. Okay, now of course you are able to modify these log windows, so it may not be exactly what you've got on your screen. It's the default one that's been set up, and we go so far and then we chop it off because we have to keep the field lengths to what Windows allows. Okay, but that's what you're seeing here. So we've got 2, 4, 5 of them, and then we include the vendors, and we've got some dollar amounts here because often people know the amount of the contractor or a good portion of it. Now that helps if you've got the same vendor more than once. Okay, so these are all searchable, and that's why we've included this amount of data. Now, if you don't like what you're seeing on this screen, that's completely configurable by you when you create the log window. Okay, so these aren't that exciting. We don't have any, I could see that we didn't have any attachments because you would see that here. Okay, but I can show you what data we extract just to give you a flavor of it, and then we'll do more on attachments in a project. Okay, so we take out a few things here. So the first thing is we do a PDF of the default standard non-custom form, which is not very exciting to look at, but it takes all the fields that have been filled in and gives you a PDF version of it. Okay. Now, we can also take the custom forms out, but this is the non-custom form. Then we take an extract of the data into Excel. Oop. That's very weird. Okay, let's just go ahead and open it. Yeah, strange error. I don't know what that is. Okay, so let's just go ahead and open that up. So then we take a record of every single field that was filled in. Now, that will include the line items. So if it's a document that's got a current money or items being purchased, as in this case, it will also take those out. Okay, so we've got all the fields. This one's not that complicated, so it's just one screen and line items. And then if there's any comments, we'll take those out as well. So let me go ahead and show you the record. So which one did I open? Oops. Let me just make sure I open the same one, BPO 001. Not sure actually if I picked the right one. Sorry, let me just try and line those up. Here, this is what I should have looked at, 002. Sorry, let me open the right one. This one. Okay, so this is the document that we're looking at. So it takes a screen grab of essentially what you've got on the screen. So it's similar to doing the print and the HTML. Okay, and then of course you can tell it what you want to do. And it's basically running this out into the folder. Okay. So if you have, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to click edit. Okay, no problem. If you have PDF, you can PDF or custom, we can run those out too. So we just don't have very many of them in this database. Okay. So then, as I mentioned, it's grabbing the line items as well. And it will grab additional components as well. And of course, the attachments, if there are any, which we do not have on this particular document, and the comments. That's what that third tab was in the system. Okay, we don't have any on this one. I've got some on some other documents that I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so that's what it's running through. That's what it's bringing through over into Excel. So then you can search it, you can work with it, and it's software agnostic, so it doesn't, you can open it generally in any of the software tools that you've got on your system. Okay, actually I don't need to say that. I did just change the column width, but that's not too important. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to run those out. Now, we also take out a text, XML text format. And I don't actually know how to look at that right now, so we'll just leave it at that. It's handy if you're going to do any other data amalgamation and whatnot. Okay, so it's basically just a text format of the file. Okay, so again, it can be more searchable, more usable if you're in a claim situation to grab the XML files and work with them. Okay.
Nicole, you could right click on that and click edit.
Oh,
It would show
okay.
the contents.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Okay, yikes. Maybe I don't want to show that. So, Dan, maybe you can explain what else from a programmer perspective this could be used for. If
Well,
I didn't, yeah.
We don't actually have any specific requirements in mind when we provide this data.
Yeah.
This is to satisfy requirements that we're not sure that someone might or might not have in the future.
Yeah,
it's just that
exactly.
this kind of format is machine processable very easily. So if you had some need to get at this data, you know, maybe in a claim situation like Nicole was mentioning, a programmer could easily write something to scan these files, searching for information much more easily than even Excel.
Yeah. Okay, great. Exactly. So that's why we pull that out as well. So you've got access to that. Okay, so I touched very, very lightly on the company level. Let's also just look at the document manager. So the document manager at the corporate level could well contain many corporate standards. So it's working through the company documents and putting those out there in a format, again, that you can access. Dan, do you remember where there was an example?
Yeah, corporate procedures.
Corporate procedures. Okay, I'll go there. Thank you. Okay, right. So we have a few. Just again, this is our demo database, so it's pretty light. So we've got a few documents inside of here that are in PDF form, and this is what it would look like if you navigated to them from Unifier. And so those have been extracted into the same folder, and here they are. So in this case, it doesn't have all the other additional documents because these are the documents in and of themselves. Okay. So that's at the company level. So let's just navigate back and take a look at the, we're going to take a look at the, okay, that just took a little while to open. We're going to take a look at doing an extract at the at a project level as well. Okay, that's probably the more common use of the archiver. Okay, so when a project is completed, often there are requirements not only to provide the documents, but you might need to provide the documents to multiple players. So this is why we built the archiver, is to allow you to archive at the end of the project and then divvy the documents up. So I'm going to use an example of a project, and I'm just going to use two business processes. Of course, you can extract all of them once the process is the same, but just for the sake of time, I'll focus on two. So I'm going to use the contracts. So on this project, we've given out a handful of contracts, and those contracts are to different vendors. Okay, and in this case, we've got some attachments on the actual contracts. So I'll be able to show you that layer of the archiver as well. So I'm just going to open up an example. So it's a very simple example. And so generally when you have a contract, you've got what the contract information is. You often have attachments, often many attachments, some of them quite huge, and there are some limitations there. So I'll touch on that when we run through one of our case studies. Again, line items. So this is similar to the one I just showed you. Okay, this one doesn't have any, which would be pretty uncommon that you wouldn't have any line items. So I think the other one that I've got as an example does. So these two. Yeah, so this one was $0, which would imply it's not quite finished up. This one has some money on it, which is more common. So there would be line items typically. Here we go. Yeah, so again, you'd have some line items for the scope of work, and it could be one or it could be many. Okay, so there's no limit here. These are just simple examples. So we're going to go ahead and extract this project, and I guess I didn't open the attachment, but it's just one PDF attachment in that case. Let's touch on some change orders. Now, if you used Unifier for other things besides the contract components, if you used it for site information or drawing information, we can extract that stuff as well. So just focusing on what most of our clients typically use the contracting and the cost control components. So here's an example again of money type documents. So the change in scope, and there's some sort of problem with Brock. We've got a line item in here. So there's some sort of dollar amount. So the line items can control the scope in terms of money. They're distributed to the cost worksheet. And we do extract the cost worksheet as well. And again, we've got information on the line items, and we've got attachments. So we've got two different images. I'm not sure this is going to open. Okay, good, it opened. Excellent. So I just threw some pictures up in here. So we've got some images. We could have comments on the images, and then we can have comments on the document. Okay, so I've just got a few comments in there so you can see those come out as well. Okay, so let me go ahead and run the archiver on these two modules. It's not that we can't do all of them, it's purely for the sake of time, but I'm going to run these two. So contracts and change orders. If you're not sure which modules documents are in, again, you can just choose all of them, right? And it'll take everything that was used inside that project. And it certainly doesn't have to be all of these, right? That's the way Unifier works. You can make business processes and purely deploy them on one project. So that's what makes it so great as a tool, because if you've got a client who has a specific requirement, you can make a BP just for that project. So it's highly flexible. And then what's it called? Metro 2020. Okay, there we go. This is the project. Okay. All right, so I grabbed the project, I grabbed the business processes that I want, and I can go ahead and submit it, and off it's going to go and start doing the extract. Now, if you're doing a small extract, of course you can do it. You can keep working on other things while it's working away. You could also run it before you go home in the evening. Let it work during the night, and you'll see what happened when you come back in the morning. Or it could take longer. Certainly, it could take longer. It purely depends on how many documents you've got in your system and how many attachments. Okay, so this lets us know kind of what it did. So it got 19 contracts, it got 14 change orders, and it's letting us know what it did. And in this case, we got all of them and there were no errors. Okay, so errors could occur. Typically, the errors are typically around attachments. So let me touch on that and run through that. So again, we've got the in progress. Okay, it's empty as we would expect because it said it was able to complete without any struggles. And let me go back one more layer. And then we've got the completed extracts. So we've got the document manager that comes out, the contracts and the change orders. Okay, now before I go to that, I should touch on this file that we have here, the full summary. Okay, so let me touch on that file. I'm going to use the Excel version. So what we have here is a running list. Whoops, let me do it again. What we have here is a running list of the documents that we've extracted. Okay, now that can be super helpful when you're doing incremental extracts. And this lets us know what it did, and particularly if you have errors. So I'm just going to search the project that I just pulled out in here. Okay, so particularly if you have errors and you want to see what the error was, so that you have a good idea of what you might need to fix or what you might need to chase down in Unifier. So ours didn't have any errors, but if it had, I'll show you what it would look like. So here's an example of one at the company level in one of the extracts, the previous extracts. And it lets you know there was a problem. So let me just go to the top so you can see what that column is. Okay, so it's letting us know whether we had any problems with pulling out an attachment or creating the standard print. So it's letting you know that. And so that shows up in red. So you just saw when I was too quick. Oops. There you go. So here are some that we had some trouble printing it. So a standard print issue must be something a bit wrong with the way it's been set up. And you would want to go and track that down. And when that happens, it may well cause quite a few errors potentially in the same business process. You could have quite a few errors, okay? So this is where you would want to go back, fix it, and then do a re-extract. And then this information will hopefully come out without any errors after that. Okay, if it doesn't, then you just continue to fix it and then off you go. Now, if you have a problem with an attachment, which we do bump into that here and there. The attachment somehow is missing or is corrupted or the revision is not quite right. It's not often, but it can happen. So you could try and fix that problem, but often there's not much you can do about it if the attachment just can't be found or something's gone wrong there. Okay. So it doesn't have to happen often, but it certainly can. So this is
Just to
a
provide a
running.
little
Yeah, go
clarity
ahead.
on that,
Yeah,
the archiver, normally when you see an attachment problem, if you go into Unifier and try to download the attachment, a user won't be able to download it either. So it's an
right.
issue with
Yeah,
Unifier, not with the archiver. I just
yeah,
wanted to clarify that.
yeah, exactly. Thanks, Dan. Okay, so this gives us a summary. So this is really helpful. And sort of the first thing that you do when you do an extract, you go take a look at the summary, particularly if you have errors. So we've got that, and that's a running total for the whole list. So then you can jump into the particular project, and we can jump into I'm going to jump into the change orders. Okay, now let me just make sure I grab the right one. Okay, so it's rock and trenches. That's the one we're going to look at because it's got comments, it's got the attachments. So we'll start with that one. Yeah, so you can either look at it as I'm doing here. You could search. You could just search, and it'll find the rock and trenches. If you know the vendor, you can search the vendor. That'll go through all the folders that you've extracted and find that vendor. Okay, so that's a really handy way to do a vendor search. One of our enhancements will be to do a vendor extract and have that isolated as its own extract component. Okay, none of our clients have asked us for that yet, so we haven't done it, but we have it in our contract management archiver, and that's handy when you're asked explicitly to give all the documents to the project participants at the end of the job. Okay, so it's on our radar. We'll do it when client requests it. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up. So rock and trenches, and these are the things that we've got. So again, the same thing. We've got the PDF, we've got the Excel, we've got the XML, we've got the attachments, and those are the images that were there. Okay, so you can open the images. It's taking a moment. Yeah. And then you've got the image information. If you've got AutoCAD drawings or different supporting documents, all of those will come out. Okay. If I go back to the Excel, did it open? Yeah, okay, just did a little strange way of opening. Just open that up. So again, we've got all the fields. So this one has a bit more stuff on it, not quite that much, but again, we'll grab anything that you've got. That way it's kind of a user-friendly way of looking at it. The line items on the change itself, and any comments that were put in against the document, they will come out as well. Okay, so that gives you a very easy user interface. Most people know how to use Excel, so it's very comfortable and easy to work with to run through what's inside that document. And then again, the standard print, the custom prints, those types of things will come out as well. Okay, so it's not very exciting. It's just the data in a different format. So the benefit of those different formats, of course, is just the auditability, the comfort level, of course, with in a claim situation that it's been pulled out into a PDF, which of course, like anything else, can be modified. Of course, it's possible, but a lot less easy to do. So here's the format that'll come through. Okay. Okay, so I've touched on quite a few things. I mean, there's a lot more, obviously, that the system can pull out any of the documents, the cost worksheets. So this is really a great, reliable way to extract the data once your project is done, and especially when you've got a commitment to share the documents when the project is completed. Okay, so this makes that process much easier. Okay, Dan, do you think I missed anything?
Nope.
Okay, all right, okay, good. So I'll go ahead and jump back to the PowerPoint. Oops. And we'll wrap it up. Now, if there are any questions that are coming to mind, please feel free to throw those in the question room and we'll try and get them answered. Is the PowerPoint showing up? It's not showing up on my screen. Just a second here.
It's not showing right now.
Okay. Oh yeah, I did it wrong. Let me do it right. Okay, there we go. That should do it. Okay, so we did a quick run through of how we do the extracts, the kind of things that you can extract, the approach you can take. So really, the key thing here is how easy this tool is to use. You don't need to be an expert once it's extracted on how to use Unifier. Okay. So what we're finding with our clients is, of course, you can grab only the data that you're looking for. So we had a client that had a claim and they wanted to focus on certain aspects of the claim, like RFIs and daily diaries. So very easy to grab that data out so that you can walk through it. You can use it in different ways. You can put it into databases and do different kind of statistics. You know, these are things that you can do quite readily. You can do some of it in Unifier too, but this makes it even easier when you can extract it out into databases. As Dan was mentioning, that XML sort of philosophy makes that very easy. And down the road, if you're doing many projects, of course, this can also help to keep your Unifier system clean. Okay. Now, Unifier is capable of having many projects in it, so it's not from the perspective of needing to. It just may be a choice to get certain things out and then into other systems as you work. You saw how easy it was to do a project or many projects, different modules or business processes, and the company data as well. So very simple, much more reliable than trying to do that one by one. And in terms of the incremental extracting, that's really handy. So we have a client, it's in Contract Manager right now, but that client is still actually using contract management. They're finishing their project, and so they want it to start archiving. So the incremental extract will allow them to keep using it and just archive any additional documents that they're doing to close out the job. So this is very handy and makes it very user friendly. Okay, I think, and then of course just a backups and generating detailed records for the history. So you've got statistics that you can see. We can count how many documents there were. So you can do all sorts of good things with the statistics. So I'm going to run through one case study and then I'll turn it over for any questions that you've thought of during this session. So one of our case studies is from a large oil and gas company here in Calgary. They used Unifier on a mega project, and The project, I think, was about 5 to 6 years long that they were using it. So they had an inordinate amount of data inside of there. In the way that they put the project together, they had multiple projects for different phases and components to the project. So though it was one big project, they had it split out. And we helped them extract all that data. Now, they had thousands and thousands of documents, and they didn't want to continue to have to pay for the Unifier Cloud for 7 years. It was a considerable amount of money that would have cost them. So they decided they would use the Unifier-Archiver to get that data out and then move it into their own internal environment to allow people to access documents. Now, interestingly enough, during the project to do the extraction, they had to change some of the priorities because they had a claim that came up. Okay, so our priorities changed a little bit, and we were able to get them the documents that they needed to defend a claim. So, so it does, excuse me, it does work for that as well. Now, for this project, probably the biggest challenge was we were going to extract the data out of the Oracle Cloud, put it to our own environment, and work on the extraction. So we had some trouble getting the documents out from Oracle, from their cloud. And this is where we it took quite a bit of time. Their extraction wasn't giving us all the documents, and Dan did the validations and found numerous missing documents. So they had to chase those down. This is where we found that some of the attachments, for whatever reason, weren't quite weren't in Unifier to be extracted. So there was a little bit of data loss, but not a lot. It was a very small percentage of the overall. So of course, this process has saved them thousands of hours of pulling these documents out. So one of the things we did bump into, and I think I'll ask Dan to elaborate on it a bit more, was the size of attachments. So Dan, do you want to touch on one or two of those interesting road bumps that you bumped into with the sizes of attachments?
Sure. This customer had very large invoices. Their invoices were like 800 gigabytes big, and they were PDFs. I've never seen an invoice or any PDF of any kind that's that big before. But they had those invoices and multiple of those attached to individual documents in Unifier, and it made the total size of the attachments exceed 2 gigabytes. And there's a bug in Oracle's API where it will not give you the data if that's the case. So you have it written on the slide that we had to do those manually.
Yeah.
We actually planned to do it manually because we thought there were only a few of these.
Okay.
But actually there were too many, and I had to make changes to the archiver.
Okay.
So that we are basically circumventing Oracle's buggy API, and we were able to get all of these out without without needing to do anything manually.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify a point that you just made specific to the attachments.
Yeah.
The failure in producing the attachments was a failure on Oracle's part. They did not have the attachments to give us. It wasn't an issue with Archiver.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that clear as well.
Yeah, exactly. It that was a struggle, a big struggle. I'm not quite sure why it was so difficult to get all that, but we finally did get it. So, and but that's just something to keep in mind. It's a lesson learned also on our part. We may choose to. We were trying to get the client off that environment so they didn't have to keep paying for it and extend their subscription. Had we realized it was going to be such a challenge, we probably would have just tried to do the archive right off of that environment. Okay, so that's also a lessons learned on our part, and in the end, we're getting there on that one. But there's always lessons learned on every one of these. Okay, so those were the main things we wanted to run through today. Hopefully you saw something of interest. Really the thing here with what Emerald's been doing for the last 27 years with Primavera tools, we've had programmers on our team from the very beginning because we understand that the data management and streamlining data management is critical on all projects. And the archiving tools that we've got, not only for Unifier, but we've got one for contract management. So if you've got an environment that you've got up that you would like to dismantle, reach out to us because we've done that for many clients. And also in P6, we've got great tools to archive projects, archive tasks, archive WBSs. So we understand that not only setting up the system well, but also keeping it clean is vitally important. And we've done a lot of it and a lot of integrations as well. So reach out if there's anything like that your team is wanting to explore to make their use of project management systems from Oracle work better for them. So if you have any questions, absolutely, you can reach out. You can do them now. If they come up later, that's okay too. So I'll give you our contact info in a second, and you can reach out to us that way. I'm also going to just use the poll feature here in our system. And if there is something that you do want to continue the conversation on, you can go ahead and click on one of those. It just makes it easier for us to follow up with you appropriately. Okay. And if you just want to stay on the mailer, keep learning about some of the things that we do, that's okay too. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I think that was everything we wanted to run through today. I've got my contact info there, so you can reach out if you've got any questions, or you can always just send a general RFI into Emerald through our website as well. Okay, so it doesn't look like anyone's got any immediate questions, which is fine. If any do come up later, reach out. We'll be happy to try and answer them and help you with your Unifier and your project controls approaches. Okay, well, thanks for joining today. Have a wonderful day, and I think we'll stop it here. Thank you.